All right, we be live. Hello, everyone. I am Armin Navabi, and this is the Atheist Republic. And today we are here with Alex. Hi, Alex.
Hey, how's it going, man?
Good, good. Can you let people know who you are and where they can find you? Just let people know a little bit about yourself and your positions about the topic today.
Sure. My name is Alex. I run a channel called Playing with Fire, mostly talk about dating and stuff like that. Somehow I get into debates about things that are way outside my scope of what I do on my channel. So obviously my channel is not political, but I had some fun debates with Destiny about Israel versus Gaza. I personally, I don't know if this matters or not, but I've been to Israel many times. I have two cousins in IDF. I even have the birthright tattoo on my back. So I'm pretty familiar with Israel, pretty familiar with the culture. My grandma lives there as well. I probably would say I'm a little bit more on the pro-Palestine side, but it just depends. I mean, we can get into it as we get into it, but I wouldn't say I take like a strong position either way. I think there's a really smart quote from one of my favorite books, Game of Thrones, is there's good and evil on both sides of every war ever fought. And I think that quote is so true. I think when people say one side's good, one side is bad, it's overly simplistic and doesn't really help anywhere. So yeah, I guess we can just get into it more as we go along, but that's kind of, I would say,
10,000. What's the good from the Hamas side?
No, when I say the good side, I mean the Palestinians. I mean Hamas. There's nothing good about Hamas.
Okay, good. Because I don't think the war is against Palestinians for them to be considered a side. I think the war is against Hamas. So I don't consider Palestinians to be one side of this war. In fact, I think the Palestinians are being liberated from Hamas. It's not against Palestinians. It's in favor. The war currently right now is in favor of both Israelis and Palestinians.
Yeah, I mean, I would just disagree with you on so many fronts. Like, I think if you were to poll the vast majority of Palestinians, they would say they want Israel out. They want a ceasefire. So I don't think
they're wrong. They don't know what's good for them.
Okay, you can make that argument about a lot of things. Like that girl didn't know what was good for her, so I did this and that. I mean, I feel like that they don't know what's good for them is an interesting argument. But so wait,
but that doesn't, just because you could make that argument in some wrong places, that doesn't mean that you cannot make that argument in some correct places, right? It's correct. Sometimes people are wrong about what's best for them. Just because I make that argument, that doesn't mean that it applies everywhere always, right? It applies here.
Yeah. So I was just making I agree with you that sometimes people, you can help people even though they think that you're not helping them. Generally, I would agree with you on that. I was just trying to make a point that Palestinians in general are very much not in favor of this war. That was the only point I was making. Now, if we're going to talk about,
they've been brainwashed.
You could say that. I guess I would disagree with that. But then if you want to talk about like, okay, is this war benefiting the Palestinian people? Well, I mean, again, we might differ about stats, but it seems the vast majority of people who died had been civilians. You have something like 15,000 children dead. And I know the problem. I know the issue with the children that includes the fighters, but still we have thousands and thousands of
children. Vast majority of the people that die in every war are civilians. Almost every war are civilians.
Well, that's why I'm anti-war.
Yeah. Well, sometimes you need war to end wars, right? You cannot be. Sometimes you need to defeat an enemy to reduce. I'm anti-war as well, but I'm anti-war. I'm not anti-wars. I'm anti-war in the long run. Sometimes you need to respond to an attack to deter more attacks, or else if war was always a bad idea, then we shouldn't have armies, right?
Well, armies act as deterrents too, but I do agree. I'm not a pacifist. I think war can be justified sometimes. And I'm not even against Israel going after Hamas. I think that after October 7th, Israel should have invaded Gaza and got after Hamas. So I'm not saying that the whole thing was wrong. I'm saying the way they've approached this war is wrong. And I can argue that from multiple perspectives. Number one, and we can get to this more in terms of the human rights and war crimes perspective, that's been really wrong. And number two, in terms of just overall pragmatism, Israel's goal is live side by side in peace, right? I'm assuming we got politicians and whatnot, but the average Israeli, they want to live in peace. They want peace. They don't want to get attacked. They want a thriving economy, blah, blah, blah. And so when you kill a lot of civilians, what you're actually doing is you're basically creating more Hamas, more terrorists, more jihadists. Because if you think about it just logically, right? Like I'm a very, I guess would say, rational, logical person. But If my mom and my daughter were both killed in an accident, let's just say it's an accident, I would hate whoever did that, whatever side did that. I would absolutely hate them. And I think that's kind of the problem, is that from a pragmatic perspective, you have, basically this cycle of violence is going to create a bigger cycle of violence. You're going to have more Hamas as a result of this, or more, at the very least, more Islamic jihadists. And then you also obviously have the moral perspective. So we could, I don't know which one you want to focus on more, the moral or the pragmatic.
I mean, I agree that Hamas is not going to go away, and this war will probably create more Hamas fighters, right?
But then how could it
this
be
is
good?
an ideology. What?
But then how could this be a good thing from a pragmatic perspective?
Because the cost, because you have to do a cost benefit analysis. The cost associated with not responding would be higher. I understand that one of the costs associated with responding in Gaza in such a way is the fact that you are going to feed the ideology, and more people are going to have such experiences that it's going to make them more likely to become, Hamas fighters. I accept that, right? But but that's a huge consequence. But I compare that to the consequence of not responding, right? Not responding to an attack on October 7th. I believe that it's not just that Israel was required to respond to an attack like that. Israel is required to respond to that attack in a way that Hamas's ability to rule over Gaza is removed. I think like Netanyahu and others made a mistake by defining the objective of this war to be destroying Hamas, because I don't think that's achievable. The objective should have been defined as removing Hamas's ability to control Gaza, and that's an achievable goal. And anybody who says that there is a way to do that without doing what Israel has done so far, I mean, they haven't shown me. I mean, I've spoken to military experts, and they are incapable of providing a different way to do that. I mean, I'm not saying that Israel has committed no mistakes in Gaza, but when it comes to the general strategy that they have, it seems like that is one of the, I mean, if anybody could provide another strategy for how to achieve that military objective, I'm all ears. But so far, nobody
Yeah.
has
I think we can get into that. I'm previous by saying I'm not a military strategist. I didn't go to military school, so
Right.
I'm going to give you an overview to your answer. I can't give you like a specific exact detail. So just for the preface. So okay, so let me just respond to everything you said one by one. So I feel like you're creating a false paradigm where there's only two options. Number one is don't respond, which we both agree is a bad option. But number two, where you respond the way Israel is responding. But there's a third option, is where you respond in a better way. Now you're questioning, okay, how would we do that? Well, we can look at America-Iraq war in Ramadi, specifically the city of Ramadi. Ramadi is quite similar to Gaza in some ways. It's a densely populated city full of civilians. It was controlled by terrorists, blah, blah, blah. And so the way America went about during that mission Ramadi was quite differently. So first of all, we can look at how big the bombs that were dropped. America did not drop nearly as big or as much of bombs in heavily populated civilian areas, because they knew that would kill a lot of innocent people. Not saying American army is perfect. American army has also committed its fair share of war crimes. We're talking about better or worse. Another thing is the way America approached that war is they would clear a block and they would hold, right? And then they would clear another block and hold. And the whole point
that's a whole different issue. Okay, you're not that. I think
you're asking me how to do better. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
Okay, well, I mean, I've spoken to military experts, and they haven't been providing a way. So it's not just that you're attacking an area, right? You're attacking a militant group that is hard to tell apart from the civilian because they don't wear uniforms. They use human shields. You agree with that? They have tunnels under. I mean, based on what I've read and what I've seen, I mean, you could say, and who are you getting this from? Because based on the people I've talked to, that is not with the objective of, it's not just an attack. Oh, let's just attack and just go. It's an attack with the goal of moving in your
removing Hamas from power. Yes,
removing Hamas, but making the aerial bombardments required before you send your soldiers there on foot, right? So all of that is completely different. So it's a different type of enemy. It's a different type of objective. It's a different type. Many things are different based on my understanding of what I've seen, I've read, and the people I've talked to. This is a completely if I don't know if you're saying, like, if you compare just one military battle somewhere else with my level of understanding and your level of understanding, I don't think we could say that yes, that is achievable here with this military objective. I think we just have to appeal to experts on this.
Yeah, I don't know which people you've talked to. I can only speak for myself. I can't speak for like other people you've talked to who I'm not familiar with. But
right.
So the reason I brought up the Battle of Armadi is because in a lot of ways it is similar. It was a large city, is a large city with over 1 million people, a lot of civilians, and it was controlled by a jihadist group. I think it was controlled by, who was it, Al Qaeda at the time, or some one of those groups. Maybe not Al Qaeda, but it was controlled by
ISIS. When was this?
It was Armadi. It was around 2006 or something like that. If you want, I can pull up the exact data for you. But it was after 2004.
What was the military objective? What was the military objective?
To remove the terrorists from the city, to clear the city and hold the city.
Okay. And were the militias, were they wearing uniforms? Were they like shooting back? Or did they have underground tunnels?
It's typical guerrilla. I don't know about tunnels, but it was typical guerrilla tactics.
Is this something that you're comparing, or is this like some expert has provided this as an alternative way of fighting in Gaza? Because I've never seen anything like that.
Well, both.
Can you tell me did you find this, or some experts suggested this?
I don't know where originally. So the reason how I knew about the Battle of Armadi was from Jocko Willink's book, and then I looked it up a little bit. I don't know if I heard somewhere or not, but I just meant. Wait. Let me. There's so much you said. Okay. I need to be able to respond to it. We can talk about the merits of why the Battle of Armadi is different or not, but I don't think it really matters who said it, as long as the arguments I'm making are solid. Now,
because I think a lot of people don't understand.
You said so much. You got to let me respond. You said so much.
Okay.
So the point you made earlier, let's just try to stick point by point, because I feel like the problem with these debates is it just goes everywhere. So you're talking about, okay, well, how do we know there's a better way to wage this war? Well, I would say not leveling Gaza City into the ground would be a better way. Like, America did not do that in Armadi. Or, for example, why does Israel need to do controlled demolitions of schools? Like, how does that help them achieve their battle objectives? So there's a lot of actions that Israel is doing that is not in line with the goal of just removing Hamas from power, right? That seems like
I'll tell you.
What?
I can tell you.
So yeah, tell me, why do they need to level Gaza City into the ground, and why do they need to do controlled demolitions?
Well, because every single one of these buildings are being used by Hamas as a form of military operations.
But you can say that about every single building in Gaza.
I can say that. That's why they have to. That's why before they send their soldiers in, they have to. There's certain parts that they can flatten just so that they can send their soldiers in. That's the military strategy that they're going with, and that's what the experts are saying. Yeah, that's what's required.
Just to understand, so you're saying it would be just so we're on the same page here. So you're saying it would be okay for Israel to level all of Gaza into the ground, right? Because Hamas can hide there.
Well, I'm not saying all of Gaza, but the leveling that they have done is what a lot of people
we're talking.
Here's the thing. Let me tell you something, okay? A lot of people don't understand. Like me and you commenting on military strategy, I think it's a little bit naive, because people don't understand how complicated the situation is and what is required. I don't think.
But let's just talk about
what me and you could do is appeal to the experts. That's what we could do. How about this?
Experts when it comes to this.
Let me accept. Actually, let me agree with you. Okay, let me agree with you. Okay, if it is shown, not by me, not by you, okay, but people that actually do, expert analysis, that people that within the field, that there was a way to commit. There was a very obvious, apparent way to be able to achieve this military objective, and Israel did not take it and decided to go with flattening of buildings without it being necessary to remove Hamas from Gaza. I will condemn that, right? I will condemn that. That's good, right? We will agree with that, right? If you're saying there were some buildings,
question, because I've seen experts on all sides of this. So, what kind of an expert would you want? Because you can find me 20 experts. I can find you 20 experts. What specifically are you looking for? What criteria are you looking for? A general? Are you looking for who?
I'm looking for a systematic review of an unbiased source that does evaluations of war strategies, that they show that they are a credible, independent, unbiased source that knows what they're talking about, and they come up with reports. And again, if there are contradictory reports, then I guess we have to see how
There's
many,
gonna be-
you know,
there's-
we
there's
have
gonna
evaluated.
be- yeah,
But again, I
there's
will.
There's going to be contradictory reports. I guarantee you that. There's
Yes,
people on
but
all sides of
if
this
there
conflict.
is,
If you're looking for third party
if there is-
analysis, we have every single human
Right.
rights group that's done their analysis.
No, not the human rights group. I've seen how biased the human rights groups are. I've read a lot of their stuff.
Like, should it be a general? Should it be like a newspaper? Like, who do you think would be a good source?
No, it should be an institution. It should. There are a lot of research institutions that do these things.
Well, like Amnesty International. Give me an example.
Amnesty International is the least trustworthy one in all.
Tell me what's a good one, so I know what to show you. I don't know what to show you.
No, here's the thing. No, I am agreeing. I'm trying to give you an olive branch. Okay, I'm just trying to agree. I'm just trying to say that it's not like Israel doesn't do things that I don't condemn. I support Israel. I condemn settlements in the West Bank. Right.
Okay, that's good.
Right, but I'm a Zionist who condemns the settlements in the West Bank, for example. Right?
Yeah, that's okay.
I'm not going to be I'm not black and white about it. Right? And here's something else I will give you. It is almost guaranteed that Israel's soldiers and some of them maybe generals are doing some things that are war crimes, because that happens in every war, almost every war. Yes. Right? So I'm pretty sure we are going to be able to. There's no evidence for it yet, because
there's a lot of evidence. I can show you evidence after evidence.
I've seen what passes as evidence, but here's the thing: even without the evidence, given that we're in a state of war, I'm pretty sure there will be examples of it. Okay.
Yes. What we're looking for is a systemic thing, right? So you're right.
Exactly.
We're looking for a system,
top-down.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Exactly.
A systemic. So let's actually try to evaluate what is it that you're actually claiming
before you do that, can we, because you said a lot, I just want to, I'm still like a little bit, okay, I understand.
I'm not saying that much. I think everybody imagines that the other side is saying more in these kind of discussions.
No, I just want to understand one thing, because I feel like you haven't really answered this question. I'm not saying you're dodging. I'm just saying I don't understand the answer. So I agree with you. There's a lot of biased sources when it comes to this on both sides. I agree with you on that. But I still can you give me examples of sources that you would trust? Like Forbes, would you trust Washington Post? Like, what would you trust? Like, what government NGO? Like, what can I show you that would convince you?
Yeah.
Like, give me specific, precise examples.
It's not any institution with a specific name that I could come. Like, if you give me any study, right, as long as I see that this institution is reputable, right.
But give me examples of reputable institution. Like, what are reputable institutions in your eye?
Like any of the academic ones, any ones with like.
So any college?
I don't.
Any university?
Yeah, any university that doesn't have a history of bias, right? So I have to
give me like 3 examples. So once we don't
I cannot provide you with names, because when you give me the study, I will just do a really quick search. It doesn't take long to figure out whether or not this is a good unbiased source. Like, if you give me an example, I could double check, right?
Okay, for example,
but I am no Washington Post, no. But here's the thing.
Tell me what counts. Like, I don't know what. Like, you're saying no to everything.
I'm giving you this. I am okay. It's not. Sometimes it doesn't. It's different branches of the same institution work differently. Like, for example, if you tell me BBC reported this, I would be like, okay, that's good. But if you tell me that the BBC, but if you tell me that the BBC fact-finding arm of BBC said something, I would be like, okay. Do you know, like, each one of these media, institutions, they have a separate part that does specifically, fact-finding, fact-checking, that it goes into a lot more detail and research. So if you show me that their branch that has done something like that, then I will trust it even more. I like France 24, I like DW, but I'm not talking about news reports. I'm talking about reviews that are done. Like, I don't think you're going to.
But a lot of times,
think you're going to be able to find these things until this.
No. Like, a lot of times, like the BBC and the Washington Post will do, like, they'll look at satellite images, they'll talk to experts, ballistics experts, so they will do their own assessments. Is that what we're talking about? Okay.
Yes.
I can pull up things like that. Yeah, sure. I just want to get an idea of what you would consider.
But here's the thing: I'm already granting you that if you are going to show me examples of IDF doing things that are, we can both condemn here. I'm just saying that's almost guaranteed to be found. So let's just assume that you are going to be able to find, you know, any of these things, right? But I'm just asking, how do you come up with condemning Israel? Because I could condemn soldiers. I could even condemn certain, you know, generals. I could condemn certain politicians within Israel. Just like every country has its fair share of bad people with bad intentions, or people
Yeah, sure. So just
who
to
are
be
not doing
clear,
the job right.
I'm not condemning Israel. Israel is a whole country of people. A lot of them are
Right.
involved in the
Good.
idea. If I am to condemn anyone, it would specifically be the people at charge in politics and the IDF. It would not be. I wouldn't, unless the actual soldier himself is committing the war crime. I wouldn't condemn my cousin for the crimes of someone who's like 20 units aside from him, you know? So like, I think we want to be careful. I'm not one of those people that's going to ever say, oh, Israel's so bad. I love Israel.
What is the claim here? What is the claim here that you're trying to defend? Because
we're
are you
talking
just claiming that there are some war crimes? Because that's not a very extraordinary claim.
We agree on this earlier.
In every war.
Specific examples of war crimes would happen in every war. We agree on that. I'm talking about a systemic, a culture.
Okay, show me that it's. Let's assume.
Sure.
Let's assume that there are examples of war crimes, and now let's show me how do you know it's systemic.
Okay, sure. So before we do that, though, we just need to agree on a few things. So, okay, let me try to think of a good way to explain it. So, like with, for example, with killings, right? We can think there's different levels. So there's a big difference between a soldier on a battlefield shooting the wrong person and a drone strike, right? Because the drone strike, happens like 3 chains above. You know, there's a whole process that needs to be approved before Israel does the drone strike, right? So we can separate those two things, right? For example, if we have 10 examples of Israeli soldiers throughout the war shooting a child, then we could just chalk it off as like, okay, well, you know, that's probably a war crime in of itself and maybe a human mistake. But if we have like 10,
but even with drones, mistakes happen.
Right, but we're looking for gross negligence.
You know how I know even with drones, even with 3 levels of checks, mistakes happens. Do you know how I know that?
Because America has killed a lot of civilians with drone strikes.
No, because sometimes they hit their own people. Sometimes they shoot their own soldiers. So that could not have been intentional.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. So we're looking at negligence here, right? We're looking at, so for example, like when it comes to like crime, like let's say I kill someone. If, for example, there's negligence, like I was negligent, like let's say, for example, I don't know, someone came into my house and while I was, I don't know, watching TV, like this is a friend of mine, he like hit his head and fell down the stairs and died. That would probably be an accidental killing. But let's say my stairs were really dirty and there was some like fucking olive oil and shit on that made him slip. That would be negligence, right? So we're looking for negligence, right? So I agree with you. Mistakes happen every war.
Negligence is not always war crimes. Negligence could be just like wrong, condemnable, but not a war crime.
Well, indiscriminate bombing, indiscriminate shooting is a war crime. So
it depends, but yeah.
Well, so like, okay, so indiscriminate. So if there's a shooting,
depends on how you define what's your metric, because sometimes like that's a very hard thing to measure, right? So you have to measure whether or not the soldier or whoever's doing what they were doing took enough action to try to distinguish whether somebody was a civilian or combatant.
Yes.
Yes, but where's that line? Okay, that is such a complicated topic, and it requires a lot of data that you're not going to be able to collect from all the videos or all the reports right now that are coming out of Gaza. That's going to be very difficult to show, and it requires a lot of investigation to figure out, with the limited information that we have only from a video or two, whether the soldier had done what they were supposed to do. And maybe you're right. Maybe I'm sure there will be examples of soldiers not doing what is required for them to be able to distinguish that. But again, I already granted you that, so I don't know why we're even discussing this, that there will be examples.
Because first of all, we need to, I'd be happy, I promise you, I'm going to give you examples. I think before we get into that, we have to make sure.
We don't need examples. I already granted you that.
Okay. So because some of the premises you're putting out there are just, I disagree with. So you made the point about, okay, well, it's very hard to determine, like that there's definitely negligence. I agree with you, but this is not a court. where someone has to be guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. We're just saying here what is more likely, and then we can do percentages. I think 80% chance this happened, but here we're not talking. So
Right.
I'm not going to be able to prove that Israel is committing war crimes.
Let's figure out what are we trying to prove.
doubt.
Are we trying to say that Israel systematically is doing what exactly? Let's actually get the claim right.
Easy one will be indiscriminate bombing, indiscriminate shooting.
Why?
Why? Because there's many pieces of evidence. Number one would be the testimonies of fellow IDF soldiers who said,
why are they with what? Why would they do that? What would they get at?
Why would you want me to speculate about their motivation?
I mean, it just makes no sense.
Well, I'm not an IDF politician. Like, I can speculate if you want about the motivation.
IDF.
But what?
It just makes absolute no sense. But you want to do? You're saying that this is not a court of laws for us to like have detailed evidence.
No, I'm just saying we can't prove it beyond a reasonable doubt.
If we are not, if it's not a court of law, and we are going to basically try to see what's more probable, then if we're doing Occam's razors and stuff, then we need, without detailed evidence and really behind the scenes information, we need to go with motivations, which makes no sense. Like, if I'm doing probabilities, motivations is one of the tools I have left, and it just makes absolute no sense for Israel to want to do that. Why would they do that?
I just want to preface by saying that I'm speculating right now. I don't know this for a fact, but my speculation: why would Israel be engaging in indiscriminate shooting, indiscriminate bombing? I would say it comes down to a number of reasons. Number one, I think there's a general disdain from the people high up in Israel. You can see this by the quotes of just the lives of Palestinian people. It's not that so much they want to kill them all.
What quotes?
I mean, okay, but do you want me to give the overall point, and then we can get into the quotes? Because I feel like we're not able to get through anything because
because you said we should do, because you said let's take at one point at a time. That's.
But you asked me a general question. I haven't been able to even give you 10% of the answer.
Go ahead.
So
I want to do this the way that you feel comfortable with. So you tell me.
I feel comfortable. I just feel like you're jumping around a lot, so I'm not able to really like answer your questions properly.
Okay.
And I want to do that.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I think the initial question you asked me about motivations, like why would Israel be engaging in indiscriminate bombing, indiscriminate shooting? I think part of it comes from just not giving a shit about the life of Palestinian people. Doesn't mean everyone in the IDF doesn't give a shit. I'm just talking about overall culture. That'll probably be one thing. Number two, there's probably a big sense of revenge right now. It's like, fuck these guys, look at what they did to us, right? And you have probably a level of dehumanization happening to the Palestinian people. So, that's why I think that's probably another big part of it. The third thing is, I don't believe that Israel is going to ultimately give Gaza back to the Gazans. I think the plan is to not directly annex, but to control Gaza for a very long time, and for Israel to keep Gaza. So also, if you get rid of some Palestinian people, well, that gives you more space. And just to kind of give a specific source of evidence for that, we have the what's it called, the Worst Daddy program, which was recently uncovered, I believe, by what's the name of the magazine? 972 Mag. So that's just general ideas. I think it's a combination of things. I think it's not really giving a fuck about the value of a Palestinian life. I think it's also a lot about revenge. And I also think that the ultimate goal is to just claim Gaza.
Okay.
But this is speculation.
That is crazy. Can I say why?
Well, sure, but just tell me why each one of those is crazy at a time. We can talk about them.
Okay, but I let you speak for a while, so give me a chance to do that.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. First of all, your reasons, even if they didn't give a shit, okay, they seem to give more shit about Palestinians than Hamas does, right? The things that they do to avoid civilian casualties seems to be way more than Hamas does to try to reduce the Palestinians' dying.
But we both agree Hamas sucks. Like, I agree with you. Hamas very evil.
More than anybody does. Basically,
Israel better than Hamas. Yes, we agree on that.
Okay, yeah. No, but it's not just that they're more than Hamas. It's more than any military in modern history. Israel IDF has done more to try to reduce civilian casualties than any military in.
We would totally disagree when it comes to
modern warfare.
Okay.
Right?
We would disagree with that, but yeah.
Yes. So when it comes to dropping leaflets before bombarding certain areas, telling people to get out of the heavy bombardments areas, when it comes to not just writing the leaflets in Arabic, also taking the time to draw a map and using drawings to for people that might not be able to read. When it comes to spending enough time to figuring out that actually they have to tell people to go move towards the river, to leave the high bombardment area, because some people don't even know where the north and south is. When it comes to having a huge staff of Arab-speaking members of the IDF that are calling Gaza all the time, trying to tell people in Arabic where to go, why are they still in a certain area. And by the way, I've been listening to those recordings. One of the recordings was fascinating. One of the people in Gaza were saying, like, the IDF, Arab-speaking IDF soldier was calling him, like, why are you still there? We told you to leave this area. This area is going to get bombarded. And the person was saying back to the IDF soldier that we can't leave this area. We can't leave this area. And the IDF soldiers were like, why? Like, because Hamas is not letting us. Hamas is shooting at us, trying to keep us under the heavy bombardment area. And also with all there was examples of the Hamas blocking streets. And I know you already know Hamas is bad. That's not my point. Blocking streets, trying to keep Gazans under heavy bombardment. And Israel soldiers were moving in, attacking Hamas just to open the blockade so that the Gazans could leave the heavy bombardment areas. When it comes to doing the explosions on top of the buildings to warn people to leave the building before they flatten the building, to make sure that the people are leaving. This is more than what international law requires you to do, and it's more than what any other military has done so far ever, right? So and also when you say there's another place that it could have been done that way, I think if once we go over the details and the military objective and what is required in Gaza, I think all of that goes out the window, because again, the details are very, very much more complicated than you just are like, well, they could do this thing that they did over there, Americans did in the other world. I think that's a very simplistic way of looking at it. So now, even if I agree with you that they don't just give a shit about Palestinians, or they have a sense of revenge, it's just so bizarre to look at a professional military like an IDF, because the whole thing operates like a system. To have this attitude of revenge, first of all, they have shown that they do more than any other country ever, any other military, to try to protect civilian lives. But also to think that this sense of revenge, because the rules of engagement of IDF is something that has been built into it for a very long time, and it's very precise, and it's been scrutinized by Israelis and international community for years. And to think that October 7th has just like completely changes the rules of engagement and the standards that they have, I think it's weird, right? And okay, let me. So here's the thing. Also, if they were actually trying to take revenge from people in Gaza, they didn't care about killing civilians, I think the numbers would not be 30,000 dead. I think it would be something like 100,000 or 200,000, because it's so much easier to actually be able to kill a lot of civilians. Like you see in other wars. I mean, here's another hint how I know that none of these accusations are correct about like them actually not caring about civilians or wanting to seek revenge. Because even though IDF is doing its war in one of the most highly population dense, I think they have their second or third highest population density in the world, given that the enemy that they're fighting is not wearing a uniform, given that the enemy that they're fighting is using human shields, given that the enemy that they're fighting, the population that they're fighting, it has a 50% children, 50% of them are children. Given all of these odds that they're working at, it's so amazing that they have still managed to reach a low enough civilian to militant ratio that is lower than average in modern warfare.
We're gonna totally disagree about what that percentage is. But
a lot of people keep saying that they killed more civilians than combatants, but that's what most wars are. Most ratio, you look at, I think the average is actually 2 to 1, civilians when it comes to civilians to militant.
If we go off any international data, it's a lot worse than that. So let me just address everything you said.
No, but that's the key point. If the average, I don't know what the average is, but I think like I've seen
it's over 90% civilian. With this war, it's over 90% civilian death rate.
Wait, how many combatants do you think they killed?
How many exactly combatants? It's around 6,000 or something like that, or
I heard the numbers are 9,000. right?
Are you
9,000.
going
And
off? Which numbers are you going off? There's different numbers on this. It's hard to measure. Like when you do a big strike and you kill a bunch of
okay,
people.
here's the interesting thing. When it comes to number of total people dying, the only number that we have to go with is Hamas's number, right? So the number of combatants that we're going with, how many combatants that they've killed, I'm going with IDF numbers. And I think you have an issue with that. But if you have an issue with that, then you have to have also an issue, because the new report shows that Hamas's numbers are wrong, right? But but if you're gonna accept Hamas's number of total number of people who have died, then you should also be willing to accept IDF numbers on how many combatants have died. Or else, if we're not going to trust either Hamas or IDF on their numbers, then we don't know. Then we cannot judge.
You said so much. Let me just respond to all of this. Okay, there's like 20 million things here. So I don't think we should go off either Hamas or Israeli numbers, because both of them are heavily biased. I think we should look at third-party sources, right? So we have Euromed Monitor. Yes, yes, we have a lot of third-party sources. It seems like the UN, every single humanitarian,
they get their numbers from IDF and Hamas, the third-party sources.
Euromed Monitor has its own way. That's why Euromed numbers are higher than Hamas numbers, because they verify the amount of people who are on the ground. I understand they rely on the registry of the people who are in the area, but no, it's not as simple as like they just copy what they say.
It's otherwise, not as simple as that, but that's the main data point.
Then why is there more people dead according to Euromed in terms of civilians than there is for the Hamas numbers?
Yes, but I'm not saying that's their only data point, but that's their main data point.
Right. So that's
where are they getting this from then, if it's not from Hamas?
How is Euromed Monitor measuring it? I think it's a combination of things. I think number one, they look at people in the hospital. I think they call the hospitals and see how many people died that day. I think they look at
who's telling them in the hospital? That would be Hamas as well.
The hospital director, unless we just say everyone is Hamas.
No. Because when you're asking about the hospitals, you're contacting the Ministry of Health, which is Hamas.
No, I think they're actually, like, as far as I understand, actually calling the hospitals, like each hospital individually, and seeing what the results are.
That is not okay, but
that's, we're kind of missing the larger.
The reports that come out of these people. But
so you're missing the larger point I'm trying to make. The point I'm making is let's just assume that they're just going off Hamas numbers. If the United Nations, if every single humanitarian group, Doctors Without Borders, Red Cross, is relying on that and thinks they're reliable, then I think I'm more likely to trust that than I am to trust the Israel numbers. Now,
but
wait, dude, you got to let me finish. You haven't let me. Dude, you've said so much.
Why are you so? You're saying you're trusting Hamas numbers, but you're not trusting IDF numbers. Is that what you're saying?
I'm trusting United Nations. I'm trusting United Nations to verify the numbers.
United Nations accept. So you say because United Nations accepts Hamas numbers, you also accept Hamas numbers.
I accept the investigation that United Nations did.
The United Nations, when they use Hamas numbers, they actually mention that this is according to them. They don't claim that they have verified it themselves.
Euromed Monitor has Euromed Monitor has its own counter, which is different than whatever the Hamas number says. Number two, this is I think an important point that gets dismissed. If you look at historically, the Gazan Health Ministry, Hamas, whatever you want to call it, whenever they report on number of people dead, it's generally been pretty close, like Operation Protective Edge, for example.
The numbers, IDF numbers.
Well, both numbers can be right since they say two totally different things. Are you saying both numbers?
No, these are not contradictory. No. These are not contradictory things, okay? So we have Hamas numbers on the total number of people who died, okay? We have
also
IDF
say how many of those people
on the number of combatants.
But wait,
IDF is giving the number of combatants that they have killed, right?
But
we can use these two numbers and figure out the ratio.
No, those two things don't lie, because Hamas is not only telling you the total number of people dead, they're also telling you how many of those were civilians, how many of those were women and children. And when you subtract the Hamas number from what Israel says in terms of combatants, you do not get what Hamas says is the innocent civilians. So
you're going to trust Hamas on who was a militant and who wasn't? You're
going to trust Israel? Like, they're both untrustworthy sources.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. If you are using Hamas numbers, please don't tell me that you don't accept IDF numbers. Either throw them both out, but don't. That is really biased. If you're saying, like, I'm trusting Hamas numbers, a terrorist group, but I'm not trusting numbers coming from a democratic country,
Okay,
with a whole bunch of checks and balances, with its own media that is always up its ass, trying to make sure that it, like, with its own internal criticism, with all the checks and balances that exist in Israel.
That doesn't carry any weight with me. Netanyahu's facing like 5 corruption charges right now, so I don't really care the fact it's a democratic country.
Actually, that proves my point. Actually, that proves my point. You just proved my point. No, wait a second.
I'm just gonna have to start talking over you. Like, I don't want to do that, but like, you've literally done most of the talking, and I have a whole bunch of things I wrote down to a previous point, and I have rest. Okay, so just let me talk, and then after I'm done talking, you can talk. So we're talking about, well, we should throw out, we shouldn't trust the IDF, or we shouldn't trust Israel, we shouldn't try Hamas, right? Right. We should trust third-party institutions. Now, to me, it seems that the United Nations and literally every single third-party organization is not going to just go off the whim of what Hamas says. So it seems that there's some level of due diligence that's being taken place, and there's a reason why all these third-party organizations are more or less coming to the same number. So we don't just have Hamas and Israel in terms of what the numbers are. We have Hamas, and then we have pretty much every third-party organization, including the United Nations, somewhere in that realm, and then we have Israel on the other side. So that's what I'm taking. I'm not saying go off what Hamas says. I'm just saying go off what the third-party sources says. We have to be able to trust third-party sources. Your argument is, but they get that from Hamas. Yes, but part of that is true, but they do verify that as well. So unless you're saying that Israel has some magical way of verifying that no one else has, then I don't understand what even is the debate here.
Magical ways? They have the highest number of the most advanced intelligence regarding who they're shooting at. Okay.
How do they calculate how many of those people are civilians?
Well, I mean, they have the footage, they have the video footage, they have when they're shooting at things, they have video. Everyone, let me just tell you something, okay? Everyone's numbers are flawed, okay? But when it comes to the levels of checks and balances that exist within Israeli systems and what they do, it's just it's a completely different standards compared to what Hamas is saying.
So
and again, I don't. You keep saying third. Can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Now, can I respond?
Yeah. Okay, fair enough.
When you keep saying third party is not a magic thing that you could say that makes everything okay, right? It depends on the third party. And also, the United Nations itself has become a very, very biased source of information and claims when it comes to against Israel. Like, there are so obvious. Okay, but here's the thing. I have reports that shows that Hamas-run Gaza Health Ministry admits to flaws in casualty data.
There's definitely flaws in the casualty data. You don't even have to show me that. I know what the flaws are, or at least I know some of the flaws. There are definitely flaws. There's flaws in every single type of data gathering. But we're talking more about what is generally, what is closer, right? I don't care about
read this.
Wait, but I already agree with you. But I agree with you. There's flaws.
It's huge. The numbers are so off. It's insane based on this new information that I'm having. Okay.
Sure, if you want to read it,
can I also respond to something that I said before?
Sure, but I would like to at some point respond to the stuff you said 20 minutes ago, but go ahead.
Okay, go on. No, I will write it down so that you can respond to everything. I will not talk until you will tell me that I can talk, okay?
Well, we don't have to fucking make it weird. I'm just saying it'd just be better if we don't talk over each other. I'm trying. That's why I'm trying to not interrupt by having a notepad. Like, I'm not making it weird. I'm just trying to do my best. Okay. All good. So I want to respond to what you said about Israel doing more than any other military. The results say the exact opposite. The civilian child death rate is insane. Now, you're going to disagree with me about those numbers, and that's fine. But we can also look at, if we just go off what the United Nations says, there was as much civilians died in this war as all of Russia-Ukraine war, and this war has lasted 6 months. Furthermore, if we just completely throw out, all the civilian death rate, the number of journalists that have died has also been through the roof compared to any other conflict of this size. So just journalists aside, I think journalists, you don't have to rely on Hamas. We can rely on the organizations that employ the journalists. So here are 3 examples, and I think we should at some point go through each one of these of how Israel is not doing more than every other army. Number one, this is a very concrete example. We have Israel dropping 2,000-pound bombs in densely populated areas. America, during its height of its war on terror in Iraq and Afghanistan, never dropped more than 500-pound bombs in densely populated areas. So even America, and America's no angel, was saying, after when you go past 500-pound bombs, you're going to kill a lot of civilians. That's number 2. That's number one. Number two, we have the Where's Daddy program. I don't know if you saw the reporting on that, but to sum it up for anyone who's not familiar, it seems that there was an AI program that the IDF was using, or probably is still using, where they would essentially, once they located the terrorist, they would wait until the terrorist was home with their family before they would drone strike them. So essentially, instead of killing them when they were by themselves, they were being killed with their family. And I can show you source for that. And number three, the most obvious, I think, is blocking humanitarian aid. I think that's pretty crystal clear. Now we can debate about how much aid they're letting in or how much aid they're not letting in, but there's some things we can clearly measure, like the fact that electricity has been largely cut off, with the exception of the South. That electricity could mean the difference between life and death for someone who has dialysis and conditions like that. We can talk about lack of clean water, and we can just talk about like food that, you have a lot of reports that essentially there's massive nutrient deficiency going on in Gaza right now. And that could be solved by allowing more of the food to get in. Now, I understand there's some issues with distribution and Hamas. I understand there's those issues, but it doesn't change the fact that there's some dipshit Israeli protesters who are blocking trucks from going in, and you have other issues with enough humanitarian aid getting in. This is not just something that like Palestine or Gaza is saying. This is something that even America, who's one of Israel's best fucking friends, gives them every single dollar they ask for. That was also said, like, hey, we need you to allow all the humanitarian aid in, and they seem to be not doing that. So also, the last thing I would say is, you're talking about the rules of engagement. The rules of engagement, according to former IDF soldiers, from what I've seen, from interviews I've seen, is to shoot anyone in sight during an operation. So you're doing a military operation, like we're going in to get a terrorist, shoot everyone in sight. That's what former IDF soldiers have said. I could show you videos and clips of them saying that, but that's former IDF soldiers. I wasn't there, so I can't comment on that, but that's what former IDF soldiers are saying. I'm going to trust them probably more than I trust, like, I don't know, some random video on the internet. That's all I have to say. I'm going to be listening while you speak. I'm just getting something. Go ahead.
All right. So, first of all, the point that you made, you can hear me, right?
Yeah. I'm here.
Okay. The point that you made regarding Netanyahu, you're not going to trust a country with a prime minister that has is criminal being charged for his, for corruption and stuff. That actually is a point in my favor, that Israel is such a country that, the prime minister could get in trouble for being corrupt in such a way. So the fact that this actually shows that Israel is a country with checks and balances. Israel is a country with an Arab judge on the Supreme Court can send a former prime minister to prison, and you can see that that's something that has happened. So this is a country with checks and balances, right? With regards to the number of civilians and the number of journalists, again, the total number does not show that Israel is not doing what it's required to do to reduce civilian casualties. You have to look at the actions, because given this place that this war is happening, given the situation, given the high level of population density, given that the enemy that you're working with, the nature of the enemy that you have, the enemy that doesn't wear uniforms, sometimes it wears journalist uniforms, sometimes it wears doctors uniforms, given that that's your enemy, it's Hamas that is responsible for a high number of civilian casualties. It's Hamas that is responsible for journalists or healthcare professionals in Gaza dying. When it comes to that's why the total numbers doesn't tell you all the picture. That's why when you have to see who's responsible for high levels of casualties, you have to look at the actions, not just the number. You could see the actions that Israel is taking is above and beyond anything that international standards requires it, and it's above and beyond what every other country has done. So when it comes to the 2,000-pound bombs, I think it's dishonest to say that they're throwing that on highly dense areas. Those dumb, unguided bombs that they're throwing is in places that have already been evacuated. You could criticize Israel because for the purpose of flattening areas. So you could be like, okay, flattening these areas, that's something I have a problem with. But it's not with the purpose of having the highest civilian casualties. You have to understand that the number of bombs that they're throwing is relative to the number of people who are dying. This is Israel must have the weakest army in the world to be able to get this low levels of casualties with this many bombs. Like last time I checked, they threw, I don't know, more than 12,000 bombs, I think. And with 12,000 bombs being able to get 30,000 people killed, that is insane. If their goal was actually to kill highest number of people, that is insane to be able to.
Did I say that their goal is to kill the highest amount of people? Was that ever something I said?
So you're saying that they're throwing that in high density areas, high populated, but places with a lot of population.
You're talking about indiscriminate. It's different than goal is to kill amount of people.
They are throwing that. They are the guided attacks are where, when they need to take a Hamas official or a militant out. But those dumb bombs, the unguided ones, are in areas where they have already evacuated with the purpose of flattening. So here's the thing: I might be convinced that some of these flattening
why is there so many
are right or wrong. I don't know.
Why is there so many people trapped in the rubble? Why would there be so many people trapped?
Because they haven't evacuated. Because they either have been brainwashed or convinced or pressured by Hamas not to evacuate those areas. When it comes to the IDF side, they have done everything that they could to try to get those areas evacuated. With that, regards to that AI report, that sounds insane. If that was true, I mean, why? Like, this is like cartoonishly evil stuff. To even imagine that IDF would do something just shows that we are living in two different worlds. To even think that it's possible for IDF to that is insanely cartoonish.
Armies commit war crimes all the time. You could say that about the American army, but Abu Ghraib. Yeah, fucking
using AI to make sure that they get the family as okay. So yes,
you're acting Hang on, I'm going to link you the article. We'll go through it. You're acting like I'm the one that proposed this theory. This theory wasn't proposed by me. There was a news media organization that covered it. Okay, so just really quickly to respond to it, you're talking about checks and balances in Yahoo. There's a big difference.
I haven't finished though. I waited very patiently.
Oh fuck! Okay, I don't know if we should try to narrow it down on some points because I feel like we're just talking.
Okay, but I was very good at making sure. I'll do it very quick. Right?
Go ahead. Sure. I'm just gonna turn Macy on.
Okay. Wait. Yeah, so when it comes to blocking aid and blocking water and blocking food, I think I've looked into those allegations. The reason why we're not getting enough food to people in Gaza, enough aid, enough water, it's because it's war. It's because it's war. It's not because Israel is not doing its duty to make sure that, they have to check these things. The process is complicated. Sometimes they have to send the trucks back because there are issues with you cannot check. There's something, they found something that is a problem that they can't let the truck in. They can't hold the truck there while they empty all their load there while all the trucks are behind them to cause a chaos and traffic. So there's a lot of complications. There's a lot of issues when it comes to trying to allow as much aid possible in, but also try to make sure that the aid that they're getting in is not feeding Hamas's military machine, especially given that some of the people who work with these aid organizations are part of Hamas themselves. It's a very, very complicated process. Israel has every right to be picky about how the aid is getting in, given that every single time the aid has got in so far, it has funded and fueled Hamas's war machine. So I completely understand why when you're attacking, while your enemies are attacking you, you don't want to be responsible for also feeding them as well, for also fueling the war machine.
By that logic, then they have to cut off all food aid to Gaza.
No, well, they're not doing that. They're trying to do everything they can to let aid in, but also be responsible to not make Hamas stronger, because Hamas steals the aid and sells it back to the people. Hamas uses the aid.
Right. So then, if the goal is to keep, Hamas is going to get some of the food. Okay, there's no denying that. So if the goal is to keep Hamas from just eating, then you have to stop all food aid. There's no other way. They're going to get.
No, it's not. It's not to not let Hamas eat. It's for Hamas not to be able to take the food and sell it 3 times the price to Gaza.
But we already know but they're doing that anyway. They're going to do that anyway.
Yeah. There are ways. For example, Israel has some other human aid groups that they trust more, that they check their practice, that they're willing to work with more because they have been less.
What are those groups? What are those groups?
I mean, I don't remember those names. Okay, here's a tragedy that I will agree with you probably. One of them was the one that Israel by mistake
World Central
bombed
Kitchen.
recently. Yes, that was one of the ones that Israel trusted more than the other ones that they were working with. That was a huge mistake and a tragedy, and people should be held accountable. But one of the ones that Israel trusted more, because with the way they operated, was that one, right?
And
but there are a couple.
What did that group get in exchange for being trusted by Israel? 3 drone strikes on that.
Right. So what, you think that was intentional?
No, I think it was just complete negligence.
I think it was a mistake.
But can we discern between an honest mistake and negligence? Right, those are not the same thing.
Yeah.
So if you're
They're
saying
not the same thing, but here's the thing. How about this? Actually, I think we could agree. I think we could agree here. Okay, it's either on purpose, okay, a mistake, but they didn't want to commit, a mistake that happened because they didn't care. It was negligence, right? Or not in this case, but if you want to exhaust all the options, justified. But in this case, this last option is not the case, right? But here's the thing. I agree that it could be negligence. It could be on purpose. It could be something that was just a mistake that was not negligence. It was just an honest mistake. It could be all of these options. I don't think me and you have the data to be able to tell exactly which one it is.
But now you're kind of dismissing the argument now by kind of minimizing and saying, well, we don't really have all the data. Well, there are some things that we do know. We do know that World Central Kitchen gave their coordinates to the IDF. So explain to me, unless it's gross negligence or on purpose,
I will.
How this could happen, how this could be an honest mistake, given the fact that IDF has their coordinates. And
Let me tell you.
Given the fact that they have that thing on the top, which essentially says like whatever humanitarian.
Because sometimes they bomb their own people while knowing their coordinates.
That's gross negligence too. Yeah, I'm not saying they shot their own hostages.
No. Sometimes they shot their own soldiers, right? Yeah. So that is obviously that is something that they did not want to do. But the example of shooting their own hostages, right? Because that is obviously something they are
negligent.
Oh, okay, yeah. If you want to say that that's something that I condemn, something that people should be held accountable for, I completely agree.
No,
okay, and here's the thing: they fired the generals over this. People are being investigated. Unlike Israel is a country responsible enough to actually do an investigation on this and try to hold people responsible for doing such a thing. Okay, but what I'm saying is that given that they even killed their own hostages, this shows that there's not some intentionality behind this.
You don't understand what the word negligence means. There does not need to be any kind of intentionality for it to be negligent. Right. Intentionality means you're deliberately trying to kill those people. It's not what I'm arguing.
But how do you tell?
So you keep talking about intention. You don't need intention to have negligence.
Right.
I want to make sure we're clear on this.
I know the difference. That's why I had 4 categories. When it comes to mistake, right? So I'm just trying to rule that one out, and then we will have two options left.
I've already agreed with you.
You agree that a mistake. You agree that a mistake could be because of negligence, or it could be not because of negligence. Do you agree that it could be?
It could be an honest mistake. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So how can we tell which one it is right now?
By several things. Number one is the fact that the World Central Kitchen gave the coordinates to the IDF. So at the very least, they should have been tracking the coordinates. Number 2 is because they had that big ass thing at the top of their thing. And number 3, because it was 3 strikes.
No, it's nighttime. It was nighttime.
So
the big ass thing on top of the.
What does that
change? So the big ass thing on top of the rooftop, it's not that easy to see that. If you look at the footage that they have, when they're shooting at these things at nighttime, it's not that clear. I've seen the footage when they were shooting it.
Okay, look, I'll just go ahead and just grant you that one and just throw that thing out the window. They still have the fact that they have the coordinates.
Yes,
they gave
but here's my point.
But also, wait, dude, you gotta let me talk like once in a blue moon. But also, let's just assume they didn't even have the coordinates, right? How would it not be negligent for Israel to just be dropping drone strikes on random trucks that they see without having any kind of deliberate reason to think it's terrorists in there?
I'm not saying it's not negligence. Okay.
What do you think is more likely? Do you think it's more likely that it's negligence or?
If I had to guess right now, I would go with negligence and I would condemn it. If I had to guess right now, right?
So
okay?
then we
Yeah, but again, I'm not going to be certain. I'm not going to be. This is just a guess. I rather wait for investigations. I just don't want to. I don't want to come up with conclusion. I just think these things require a lot more investigations, right? But again, the good thing about Israel is such a huge mistake gets taken seriously. It is being investigated. People will be held accountable. So if it is negligence, I trust Israel more than many other countries. Not, and I agree, maybe not more than the United States, okay, but more than many other countries that people will be held accountable. Maybe if it was the United States, I would be, maybe it was Canada, maybe if the United States, I would trust that more. But when it comes to Israel, the standard is higher than most other countries. That's what I'm saying.
Okay,
but
so
let me get to this point.
Okay.
Yeah, go on.
So if we agree that, so I think, I don't know how to say it. I'm trying not to be insulting, but I think sometimes people, I'm not saying you, but I think sometimes people say, well, we don't have enough information, card. So therefore we can't really make any conclusions. And it's like, okay, well, this is not a court of law. I would not feel comfortable convicting someone based on, I would not say this is beyond a reasonable doubt. Of course, there's a reasonable doubt, but we're talking about what's most likely to happen. I think pretty much everyone agrees the most likely scenario is that this was negligence. Unless, of course, you're saying it was intentional, which I don't think you are, nor do I think it is.
Even if this is not negligence, I will tell you that it is extremely likely, beyond reasonable doubt, that examples of negligence is occurring within IDF's
systematic negligence, not just like some.
So show me the systematic, but that's what I'm waiting for, the systematic part, because it's here's the thing, even if these were moral monsters who didn't care about the people in Gaza and just would like them dead, it hurts Israel. It has no benefit for Israel to just kill civilians. What would Israel get out of killing civilians in Gaza? It just brings nothing but cost.
That argument makes no sense if we're talking about negligence, right? Of course, it doesn't benefit them, right? You keep confusing, I think, intention with negligence, even though you say you're not, because you're talking about like, oh, how would it benefit them? That would only apply that this was an intentional crime. If it's negligence,
but if this hurts, what I'm saying, if it hurts Israel, hurts them.
Yes, but this still doesn't change the culture of negligence. Of course, they probably didn't think it was going to be
because you mentioned revenge. Because you're the one who mentions
you
revenge.
asked me to speculate about the motives. I'm not saying that this case was revenge. You asked me. So
you are now taking them. So you agree with me. So we might agree with something here. Okay. So you are agreeing with me that there's no intentionality behind killing civilians. So it's either negligence or a mistake or justified, because we have four options, right? Negligence, honest mistake, justified, on purpose, intentional killing of civilians, right? So you're agreeing with me that we're ruling out the intentional killing of civilians, maximizing that killing of civilians. You're saying Israel is not doing that systematically.
In this situation, it's negligence. It's not anything else.
No, I'm not talking about this situations. I'm just saying in Gaza, in IDF operations in Gaza. So you agree that it's, systematically, when we're talking about IDF's, role and how they conduct war, where we are looking for one of these four options, when it comes to explanation for why high. Right. So are you ruling out a systematic plan from the top down to intentionally increase the killing of civilians, to increase the number of civilians dying? You're ruling that out. So we agree on that.
Well, let me answer. I think that it's more likely that it's negligence. I don't think it's likely that Israel is purposely trying to kill as many civilians as possible. That doesn't mean I would rule it out. I'm just saying I don't think it's a likely scenario.
Good. We can't rule anything out. Of course, like we're not going to be certain about anything.
I'm going to rule it out. You keep saying rule it out.
Okay. So sorry, you're right. You're right. Are you considering it very unlikely, like I am? Very unlikely.
We're talking about from a top-down systemic thing, right? Not just specific incidents.
Yes. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure Israel, like any army in the world, has an asshole soldier that just would love to commit genocide. I'm sure they have soldiers like that. But systematically, you're saying that's not there.
I think it's unlikely.
Good. I agree with you there. Okay, that's good. That makes you more sane than most critics of Israel. Okay, That's fantastic.
I'm not even a critic of Israel. I'm just a critic of wars and this war in general. I'm not a critic of Israel in general.
Well, you should be a critic of Israel. You should be a critic of every country.
Why?
Because pressuring countries to being critical of how countries operate will make them better.
It's not my home. I don't live there. I live in America. Like if anything.
Well, you live on planet Earth.
Yeah, dude, there's hundreds and hundreds of countries. I can't be critical of all of them. Are you kidding me? My brain is going to explode.
This one is different. This one is a symbolic fight between liberalism and illiberalism. But I'm not going to get into that.
Right? I totally disagree with that framing, but okay. I don't think this is.
I think the war between Russia and Ukraine, the war between Russia and Ukraine, and the war between Israel and Hamas represent a war greater than themselves, an ideological global fight. But again, I'm not.
I think the mistake with a lot of the framing on both sides has been to make this like a Jewish versus Muslim thing, and it's not, because I do agree. This is what I disagree with.
It's liberal versus illiberal. It's not Jewish versus Muslim.
Well, Israel has a very conservative government right now. What do you mean?
Yeah, and it has. Israel has elements of liberalism, and right now a government that I don't like because it's challenging Israel's liberalism. Israel's secularism and Israel's liberalism is now being challenged by the Likud party and the two other far-right parties that I hate. I love Israel, and I hate what these far-right parties are doing to it.
So a country like we're talking about the people in general. Israel's like most countries, they have a combination of liberals, conservatives, people in the middle. I just thought we were talking about the government of the country. If we're talking about people,
would you be anti-American because you don't like Trump?
No, of course not.
No, so I'm not going to be anti-Israel.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I feel like we're misunderstanding. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. I was talking about what you were saying earlier in terms of you were saying liberal conservative, like liberal values versus conservative values. I was just saying that, well, the reason that I don't agree with the framing of liberal for Israel is because their current politics are conservative. That's the only point I'm making.
They have a conservative power. They have a conservative party in power, but the institutions, the way that the country operates, they're having the parliament, the judicial branch, the
checks and balances,
the executive branch. The whole framework is based on a nation-state model, based on the modern liberal standards that we have, and there are checks and balances, and there's the rule of law, and there's not the level of secularism that I like, but more secular than most other countries in that neighborhood. So there are a lot here things to celebrate here. There's a free economy, entrepreneurship.
I agree. There's many things to celebrate at Israel. I think Israel overall is great country, great people, great landscape, whatever. But I think you're talking about. I think the initial proposition was about liberalism, conservatism, and you were talking about checks and balances. So I do agree with you that in Western democracy, especially a place like Israel, there's typically checks and balances. But have you noticed how all accountability for why October 7th happened has been suspended until the war is over? So to me, it seems like the accountability will happen at some point after this war is over, but there hasn't been much accountability that's been happening now. Otherwise, then why would there not be an investigation like October 10th about why October 7th happened? Do you notice how that keeps getting put off until after the war is over?
There has been investigations, and the reports are damning. Within Israel.
Israel did their own reporting on this? I mean, Israel did their own investigation on this?
Yeah, within Israel, people have been the reports that are coming out of Israel for why October happened.
No, are you talking about threats, or are you talking about the Israeli government? They're different.
No. I'm talking about independent journalism. From
Israel. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about in America after Kennedy was shot, there's an official government investigation, right? So I'm talking about government investigation.
Yeah. Okay, you are spoiled. Okay, when you compare things to America, most countries are not going to look very good. Okay, that's a very when it comes to United States has levels of standards beyond most other countries out there.
Well, we're talking about just checks and balances. If there's checks and balances,
Israel relative to most countries, it's an advanced country that people are held accountable. Again, I'm an Iranian, so my point of reference is not as much as yours. So maybe that we're both biased here. I come from a country.
I'm not denying checks and balances. I'm not denying that Israel is a very advanced country where there's going to be checks and balances at some point. What I'm saying saying is a lot of these checks and balances have been suspended until the war is over. I understand there's Haaretz and there's independent journalists in Israel who do their own investigations. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about
agree with you. I agree with you. I agree that I wish there was more. Like Netanyahu would have to pay a price for letting Israelis die like that earlier. Like I want more from Israel. Like if you want to criticize Israel for not having, being more strict about it's not. If you want to talk about disappointments, I could tell you that my disappointment comes way before October 7th, because way before October 7th, I was condemning Netanyahu for supporting Hamas.
Right.
For basically supporting.
I'm glad you said that. Yeah, a lot of people will deny that, but yeah. But I think also if we're talking about incentives and motivations, wouldn't it seem like Netanyahu has every incentive to keep the war going? Because as soon as the war ends, then
I'm a fan of Israel. I'm not a fan of Netanyahu. I'm anti-Netanyahu because I'm a fan of Israel. Okay, and even if Netanyahu. But here's the thing. I agree that Netanyahu's intentions for keeping this war going is not good. However, it's also true that every other leader from every other party would have kept this war going.
Yes, I understand that. Yes,
right.
But that's a problem in the. I agree with you. Yes, there's people hate Netanyahu in Israel, but they support the war. There's an issue. Yeah, like that's why I disagree when people say, "Oh, just get."
But I support this war. I support this war because I think the number of Palestinian casualties would be higher if this war ends before we make sure that Hamas doesn't get to control Gaza anymore.
Okay,
because if you don't finish this war, if you leave while leaving situations in a way that Hamas could regain control over Gaza, you will have to do all of this again a couple of years down the road, and there's going to be another, tens of thousands of Palestinians dying. So for the sake of Palestinians, for the sake of reducing wars, you should not do a ceasefire until you finish the job here. I'm saying this for the sake of Palestinians, actually, to make sure you remove Hamas from.
It's hard to say. Yeah, sure, it's easy to say that, but if you're like a Palestinian who gets indiscriminately bombed, like you're going to be thinking like "fuck Israel." It's like, oh yeah, you're doing this to help me.
I would definitely be saying that. If I was in that, here's the thing:
humans are family oriented and tribal, so it's like the first circle is always family.
If a bomb drops from the sky and kills my daughter, if you come and tell me that this is Hamas's fault, not the person who dropped the bomb, I'm going to tell you to go and die. Of course, I'm going to say that. Okay. But again, a person who lost their child is not the best reliable source of information.
That's true. I just disagree. I'm just pushing back the argument that this is for the Palestinian people. I don't think
saving Gaza from Hamas benefits the Palestinian people.
Let me ask you, what do you think is going to, so Israel's going to go into Rafa. What do you think is going to happen after that? Just give me your predictions.
Okay, I don't think Hamas is going anywhere. In fact, I'm suspecting that Hamas's ideology is going to grow because of all of this. But if you destroy their infrastructure, their weaponry, their methodology of getting the weaponry and other infrastructures back in Gaza, especially because after all of this is over, there's going to be a whole bunch of donations and funding coming from Arab countries to rebuild, and the rebuilding process is fantastic for Hamas to be able to get like cement and pipes and funding and anything they need to rebuild their military infrastructure. If you manage to completely destroy the infrastructure that they have and the weaponry that they have and the tunnels that they have, and also to make sure that they are not going to be able to rebuild all of that, Hamas will lose its capability to control Gaza. However, the problem Israel is having is that they have no alternative to control Gaza, because they cannot maintain control over Gaza themselves, because that would require their military to be present there all the time. It's not going to be policing. They cannot have a couple of soldiers just for policing, because they would just be like sitting ducks. Saudi Arabia and Egypt have shown no desire to be able to come. Nobody wants to control Gaza. Like this is every Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, UAE, they're all considered just a tumor.
Yeah, I'm sympathetic to that argument. I agree with you that no one wants Gaza. But once again, the question is, okay, they go into Rafa. Okay, let's just play this off. Like, okay, Israel invades Rafa. They do what they want to do in Rafa. What happens next, in your opinion? What do you think is going to happen after that?
Okay,
Rafa's the last city left.
Here's my honest opinion. Okay, I don't know, and I don't think anybody does right now.
But just your best guess, like just you're asking me to you asked me to take my best guess about what Israel's motivation is. You asked me to speculate. I'm asking you to speculate.
Okay, if I had, again, this is really up in the air. I think that they're going to take that guy that they have in jail from the PLO, and they're going to bring that guy out and try to get him to maybe because nobody, the Abbas and everybody there has no popularity in Gaza. The guy that they had jail for all these years, maybe because of his record and also the fact that he's been in Israeli jail, maybe they could do a deal with him that they give the control of Gaza. They will, I don't know. Maybe they will do that.
That would be best case scenario. That would be awesome if that happened. I really don't think that's going to happen. I cannot imagine that happening. I think that here's what I predict is going to happen. I think that Rafa is going to happen in a week, in a month, wherever it's going to happen. There's going to be a lot of casualties. There's going to be some outrage in the West. But after that, I don't think the war is going to end. I think Israel is going to do the same thing, similar to what America did in Iraq, which is they're going to become an occupying power of that country for decades. I think Israel is going to be in Rafa what we're talking. What's the term? Gaza. In Gaza, yeah, I'm trying to remember. Okay. Israel's going to be in Gaza for a very, very long time, because if they go out of Gaza, if they leave Gaza, who's going to take it back? Hamas. You and I think both agree on that. So Israel's going to have
or another group that has Hamas-like ideology.
Yeah. So Israel's going to have to stay in Gaza for a very, very long time.
So here's the question: if you were, let's say, here's my question to you. Okay, let's say it's October 8th.
Yeah.
Okay, Netanyahu took full responsibility for not protecting the Israeli citizens and resigned, right? And you became the prime minister of Israel, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is the first day after the greatest attack on your.
Well, what would I do? Yeah.
What would you do?
Okay, sure. So I'm going to give you a detailed answer. So just bear with me, because I'm going to try to do the best possible answer for this hypothetical. I think that I don't think I would do the massive bombing campaign that Israel did in North Gaza. I think they flattened a big part of it into the ground. There did need to be an invasion. They did need to go in there. But I think I would have focused much more strategically. I would have focused on actually clearing out the tunnels. Actually, sorry, wait, let me rephrase that. Before even going into Gaza, what I would have done is I would have cut some kind of a deal with Qatar to get all the top Hamas guys who are hiding there in UAE. And I think after October 7th, Israel had the whole world. They had so much political capital. The whole world was with Israel after October 7th, with the exception of a few fringe Arab countries. So the whole world was with Israel. I think they could have pressured Qatar into giving up the top Hamas guys. I think they could have, not through military, but through economic sanctions. I think the UN would have passed massive economic sanctions, stop buying oil from them until they give up the Hamas guys, and they probably would have done that. So that would be the first thing I would do, is I would use all the political and social and economic pressure to get the top guys who were the ones who orchestrated this attack, right, before I invade. Number two is, yes, the invasion did need to be happen, but it needs to be much more surgical, right? I think the goal should be more of like a police force where you get the bad guys and you remind the good guys, i.e. the innocent civilians, they're better off with you than they are with Hamas, right? So again, that would involve things like, for example, giving out massive amount of humanitarian aid as you clear block by block. I think these wars are very complex and very bloody, but I think Israel, instead of flattening Gaza City into the ground, they need to clear it block by block, block by block, again, using the tactic that America do, which is basically conquer and hold. I forget what the name is, but yeah, so they need to clear block by block. I would not have dropped any large bombs in a densely populated area. I would have allowed massive amounts of humanitarian aid in. I would have, I think, try to work with regional partners who, before they lost all regional support, and see if you can get them involved. I would have seen if maybe Jordan would participate to give Israel more legitimacy. I don't know how likely that is to happen, maybe not, but I would have tried to work
Jordan
more
is already recognized as Israel, and they have a peace deal.
But imagine if Jordan was more active in the Israeli military campaign. That would give Israel a lot more legitimacy.
Oh, yeah, that would not. Jordan is not going to do it.
Yeah, it's a pipe dream. Yeah, maybe that wouldn't happen. But the point I'm saying is I would be much more surgical. I'll be really focused about keeping civilian casualties down, no large-scale bombs, no denying humanitarian aid, no stopping water, no stopping electricity. And yeah, that's probably what I would have done. Again, it's a bloody affair.
Okay.
A lot of people would die, but that would have been a lot
so
better.
Let's say you're the prime minister and that's your plan. Okay.
Yeah.
Play with me this hypothetical, even if you don't agree with it. Okay. All your advisors around you, right? And they tell you that you said you're not going to do a massive bombing campaign, right?
Mm-hmm.
They will tell you that there is no way you could send your soldiers in before doing a massive bombing campaign, right? They will die. Like a lot of them are going to die, and your soldiers. This is irresponsible. You're sending your soldiers in a place that are, every single window is a potential shooter that you can't even tell who's a fighter, who's not a fighter. Every single alley, every time somebody comes from a corner, you don't know they're a civilian or not a civilian until they pull something from their pocket or something and shoot at you, right? Given that there is no way for you to tell who's Hamas and who's a civilian, sending your soldiers in where you have all these tunnels underground, when you have all these windows, all these doors, all these alleys, you're basically sending all these alleys, you're basically sending your soldiers in to die. When you say doing block by block, that doesn't work. The United States also tried that. I think there was I forgot the operations. It was a disaster. You don't have operations. I forgot the place, but you don't usually. You do aerial bombardment before you send your soldiers in, right? Especially when you have tunnels underground. You cannot clear an area
typically only because from behind. Typically, yes, you're partially correct. They typically do a bombing campaign, but the reason they do the bombing campaign is because there's things like tanks and stuff like that. They go after the heavy artillery. Hamas didn't have any of that.
The entire the environment that you're in. Let's just tell me this. If they told you that if you send your soldiers in without flattening an area, you're sending them there to die. And let's say they were telling the truth. Would you not send your soldiers in? Would you send your soldiers in to die? Or would you do the bombardment and then send your soldiers in?
I'm going to answer that question. Bear with me. So either way, we just have to get rid of this black and white paradigm. Either way, soldiers are going to die. I agree with you that if we don't flatten Gaza into the ground, more Israeli soldiers would die in the short term. However, long term, I think that it would be less amount of innocent people that would die, because you're not going to piss off every single fucking person living in Gaza, right? So I agree with you short term that the human loss would be higher. But again, soldiers die in every war. We try to do what's best. But then if we take this argument all the way to its logical end, we could just say, well, just why send soldiers at all? Just level Gaza completely to the ground.
My understanding is that without the aerial bombardment, the way that they did it, it's not that you would just get some slightly higher soldiers are dying. You're basically you might as well just consider them dead. That's how my understanding of it.
But America never.
Let's say that's not the case. Let's just assume this is the case. Okay, if that's the intelligence that you had, if that's the information that you were going with, right, that either you do the bombardments in the way that Israel has done, or a huge number of your soldiers are going to die in a way that it's going to destroy people's willing to even fight for you. Like the percentage chance of your soldiers dying is so astronomically high that it doesn't even make sense to do this war. So if that was the case, would you do the bombardment and then send your soldiers? Would you send your soldiers there to die in such high numbers? Or would you just say, okay, fuck it, we're not going to go in?
It would really depend on the details. Well, I would need to know more information. How many soldiers die without the bombardment? How many soldiers die with the bombardment? I mean, this would come out
to such high levels that it will make your entire operations ineffective, and you would not be able to go past a few months.
But I still need more information than that. How many? Okay, first of all, how many people are going to die with the aerial bombardment? Just what's the number? Because people are going to die either way. We need to what is the scale?
Okay, you're talking about Palestinians or your soldiers?
Your soldiers.
Well, I can't. Here's the thing. Just I can't give you numbers. Just assume that it's to the point that you will not be able to even get close to your military objective. Like you will have to call it quits. To that, it's to that level.
So we're talking like 30,000, 50,000. Like I still need a little bit more information.
It's again. It's not. It's here. I think you calculate when it comes to battle. Things are calculated based on achieving the military objective, not based on just these numbers like that.
Well, they're also calculated based on the loss and they're on the alternative, right? There's it's more than just achieving.
I'm not going to be able to give you exact number. Okay, so you're not going to be able to give me.
I'm happy to engage with it. Just I'm not asking you to give me an exact number that you know as a fact. I'm just asking you in this hypothetical to give me more information. You can just make this up, so I can actually answer your hypothetical.
Let's say 3 times as much as soldiers are dying right now.
Okay, so 3 times as many Israeli soldiers are going to die if we don't flatten North Gaza into the ground. Now, does this apply for all of Gaza or just for Gaza City?
Every area that you want to send your soldiers in, every single area that you want to send your soldiers in requires such a bombardment beforehand.
Okay, so essentially I have 2 options. Either 3 times more Israeli soldiers die or we flatten all of Gaza into the ground. I think I would try to look for
with the knowledge that Gaza will be rebuilt, and if you don't do this, Gazans will suffer more in the long run.
Well, I think all the people who are going to be killed under the bombs are going to suffer quite significantly as well. I mean, it's like
no, there will be more, because if you don't, here the problem is that if you do not remove Hamas from Gaza, this thing, what you just experienced, will happen again and again and again, as they promised. Hamas promised that October 7th was just the beginning, and they were going to do this again and again and again. So when it comes to reducing civilian casualties, both on the Israeli side and the Gazan side, it's true that paying such a high price, like 20,000 or 30,000 people dying, is a high number, but it's lower compared to if you just
said that. You just said that the way things are going, that's going to create more and more Hamas. So how are we solving the problem? If this is going to create more Hamas.
No. More Hamas ideology doesn't mean that they're going to have the means to be able to do their act. So you could have that ideology growing, but without the means to be able to commit the atrocities that they have on October 7th.
What are these means?
So you can have more people. You can have more people interested in committing atrocities without the means, because trust me, the means is a huge part of this game, because if Hamas had more means, they would have killed a lot more people.
Sure.
So a huge part of this calculation is not just how much Hamas ideology is spreading; it's also how much equipment.
If you're asking me, should we prevent Hamas from getting weapons? The answer is absolutely yes. Yeah, of course. Keep Hamas from getting weapons. That's.
And keep them from ruling Gaza. Keep them from ruling Gaza.
I think after October 7th, it was necessary for Israel to go in and get rid of Hamas. The disagreement lies in how they did it. And I think you've agreed with me
earlier. I just don't know if there was any other way.
Well, I mean, I gave you my alternative. I mean, like, is there another?
I don't think that's feasible. I just don't think that's feasible based on what I've been hearing from generals. From
but let's talk more specifics. Why is it that when
can I also address the other things you said? Because Qatar does not have, I don't know what you're going to do, Qatar, if they don't want to give you these people, they're not Qatar.
You can have UN massively sanction them.
No. Qatar, no. UN is not going to. UN's whole deal is to let countries have their own autonomy about how they do their politics, right? Like UN will not.
We push. Why we sanction the fuck out.
UN will not, for the sake of Israel, UN sanctioning Qatar to give up Hamas leaders. That is like La La Land level stuff.
I don't think it is. I don't think it is at all. The world sanctioned the fuck out of Russia after the invasion. After October 7th, Israel had all the political capital.
Russia challenged another country's border integrity. That is the biggest no-no in UN. That's the whole point of UN. That's like the reason why we have
Hamas committed a very large-scale terrorist attack. What do you mean?
Yeah, Hamas is not a state, and the people, the leaders of Hamas in Qatar are not even the actual people that decided to do the attack on October 7th. The Hamas has different Qatari Hamas and Gaza Hamas are two different things. I know that wasn't Qatar are taking credits for it, but Israel knows that these are completely
There's
two
Hamas
different
leaders
animals.
living in Qatar. Is that correct?
Right. Yes, they are, but these are not the Hamas. The Hamas leaders living in Gaza were responsible for the operations. The Hamas leaders living in Qatar were not in charge of these operations. They
Okay,
weren't even
let's just
involved.
grant that. If we get rid of the leaders living in
But
Gaza,
here's the thing: Qatar is a country
I understand
that is independent. In Qatar is the entire. Here's the thing: Western countries wouldn't even want to pressure Qatar to do that because Qatar has become a hub for negotiating with. No. Yes, let me make this point because this is an important point.
After October 7th, Israel had so much political capital.
Yes, but not to this point, because Qatar is the place where you deal with the Taliban, when you deal with the Islamic Republic of Iran, where you deal with Hamas. If Qatar becomes a place where they give up people that are extremely hated, they will lose that status, the status that United States wants Qatar to have, the status that Saudi Arabia even is using sometimes. Like, actually, they're competing with Qatar. You know, Turkey and Saudi Arabia and Qatar are like competing, and Oman are competing for.
I understand the interregional politics. Yeah. We're just disagreeing on how likely it is. Okay, you're saying that there's no way it would happen. I think there was a chance. Okay, we don't know. This is pure speculation. But just to follow up on that, what do you think should then, like, Israel's going in and they're getting rid of all the Hamas people in Gaza. So what do you think should happen to the Hamas leaders, even if they're not responsible for October 7th, who live in Qatar?
Oh, I think they should be assassinated. I think we need. Here's the thing: Israel has the capability. Okay, this is how powerful Qatar is. Okay, Israel has the capability to assassinate Hamas leaders in Qatar, but Qatar is so influential that even Israel doesn't want to piss off Qatar so much. Qatar warned Israel that do not assassinate these people while they're in Qatar, and Israel is actually listening to Qatar. That's how influential Qatar is in politics right now. Because even Israel needs Qatar. Israel needs Qatar when it comes to talking to Hamas.
Yeah. I understand Qatar is often the center for a lot of these negotiations in the middle, man. Okay, listen, we can disagree on how likely it is to happen, but I don't think it matters since we're well past that point. We both agree that would be nice if that happened. We just disagree on how likely it is. Okay, so where were we before? Okay, so we're talking about.
Let me say some of our agreements. Okay, I think we agree that Israel is not committing an act of genocide based on the things that I've heard. Like, you think that they're doing some human rights violations because of negligence, because indiscriminate bombing, but you don't go as far because you're saying you're not using the intentionality claim. And for the genocide claims, you require intentionality. So you're not accusing Israel of committing genocide, correct?
I don't think there's enough evidence to definitively conclude that Israel's committing a genocide. I think it's plausible, but I don't have enough evidence to make that statement.
Okay, well, that's better than most people. I appreciate that. But go on, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I was just talking about, like, I would never make that statement because I think, again, there's not, like, it's really hard to pull intention, and we can dig deep into the quotes and try to interpret it. But I think that we'll get that information.
The quotes were so misused. Like, when you look at
some of them were misused. I know, I'm familiar with that. Yeah. But I think we'll know that in a few years and what exactly the situation there. But no, it's not my most likely. I don't think that's the most likely thing that's happening, which is Israel's trying to.
And we also agree that it's very likely that there are some war crimes happening by IDF soldiers in
Israel. That was
Israel
never a question. We're talking about.
So the only point of disagreement that we have is whether there's a systematic top-down negligence because of lack of care for Palestinian lives, and that's what we disagree on. I think that Israel has shown that they do above and beyond what is needed to show care for Palestinian lives, and you disagree with that. So that's the point of disagreement, the main point of disagreement that we're having.
So, yeah, but I think that everyone in their right mind would agree that someone in the Israeli army at some point has committed a war crime, right? I don't think that's something that anyone ever questioned.
Yeah, Every army has
every
that.
army. Yeah, sure. Every single army has. There has been some dipshit.
But for some reason, we're so much more critical. When it comes to Israel, people try to paint the entirety of Israel as this evil country because they have certain people that are bad actors. And I think they do that with Israel more than any other country. And I think it has something to do with them being Jewish.
Oh my God. This is where you lost me. This is the anti-Semitic argument is, I think, so lame.
You don't think it's because of that? You really... No. I think anybody who denies the level of anti-Jewish hatred that exists, that makes people the double standards that they judge, the way that they judge Israel.
I think people greatly. I'm sure there are some anti-Semitic people out there. And a lot of those anti-Semitic people are actually people who are supporting the Gaza invasion because they're Christian evangelicals, blah blah blah. But no, I don't. I think people heavily overblow the level of anti-Semitism here, and I've seen this time and time again. It's like, oh, you disagree with Israel, you're anti-Semitic. I've seen this debate time and time. I know you didn't do it. You didn't do it. You didn't do it. I'm saying that I've seen it in many, many, many debates. The anti-Semitic thing is being thrown around left and right. Like, for example, with the Colombia protesters, right? It's like, oh, these people are anti-Semitic, ignoring the fact that like a lot of them are actually Jewish themselves. So no, I don't think that the reason. First of all, I don't think
these are two separate claims.
Let me finish. I don't think that Israel is receiving some unfair level of scrutiny that other countries would not receive. If we look at the American war in Iraq, in Europe, there was a massive movement. Like everyone was talking shit about America during the war in Iraq. I think that if we look at what, with Russia invasion, I understand the different situations, but everyone was shit talking on Russia. So I don't think this has anything to do with them being Jewish. I think that's a misnomer, and that's an intellectually lazy way of not even engaging in the argument. I think this has everything to do with what people perceive to be either a genocide, what they perceive to be, or war crimes being committed. It's what people perceive to be the case. I think out of everyone who's anti-Israel, like less than 1% of them are actually anti-Semitic.
Okay, it's intellectually lazy if you assume somebody is anti-Semitic just because they're criticizing Israel. Okay, but that is not. I agree with that part. Okay, but that's not the same as acknowledging the high level. I mean, you have to be blind not to see the level of anti-Jewish hatred that exists in the world and how much that motivates the anti-Israeli anger that exists. Like this is such a deep-rooted, ancient hatred that exists within the fabric of cultures all around the world. And
there's not some cultural hatred of Jews. This is coming from someone who's
my God.
Point to me some of these instances of this deep spread hatred in America. I know in Arab countries it happens, but in America, like people who are in positions of power, or point me to like any examples of this happening in America.
Well, I mean, I can show you a lot of examples in America. I have to go and list them for you. But again,
just show me a few, just a few.
I agree that maybe in the United States, even here's the thing, the United States has it less than all these other third world countries that are surrounding Israel, first of all. But even in the United States, the level of hatred that exists for Jews is higher than the level of hatred that exists for almost any other group of people.
So there is
the level of hatred, the level of hate crimes. I mean, the level of hate, you do not notice that the level of hate crimes against Jews is higher than any other group in the United States?
Show me evidence that there's more, that this war is being prosecuted, like that Israel, that there's massive anti-Semitism in the West, or any element of like show me the evidence besides some fringe person.
I will go gather those for you, because I have done stream after stream. I have to go gather that information for you. But this is such fun. This is within the media, it's within the universities.
No, there's media saying there's anti-Semitism, but I haven't actually seen like clear-cut evidence of anti-Semitism from people in power. There's a difference between someone
within academia. Have you not seen it within academia? Have you not seen it when it comes to okay? I will send those your way if you're actually
okay. Fine.
The thing. Then you agree. Let me give you that. Would you agree that the level of anti-Jewish hatred around Israel, surrounding Israel, it's insanely high in that neighborhood?
In the Arab countries?
Everywhere around Israel.
Are we talking about in Israel proper? Or we're talking about in the surrounding countries.
No, Israel's neighbors and its neighbors.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Okay. Okay. So at least you accept that.
Yeah, and Arab
Because
countries,
the
of
world,
course.
well, it's Arab countries, Turkish countries, not just Arab countries. Like Iran is not an Arab country. The Islamic Republic of Iran is extremely anti-Jewish. Pakistan is not an Arab country. Afghanistan is not an Arab country. Bangladesh is not an Arab country. All these, Indonesia is
But
not an Arab country.
these are largely Muslim countries. That's what I mean. Largely
Yes.
Muslim countries.
Also, okay, here's a country that is neither Muslim or Arab, Russia, or all the former Soviet Union countries. Do you know the level of anti-Jewish hatred that exists there?
Existed or exists?
Exists right now.
Go ahead and tell me, because I'm from that part of the world.
It's crazy. You would not believe the world. Okay.
Well, I was born there, and that's where I spent the first 7. That's where my whole family's from, is Belarus. Half of us are Jewish. We didn't really experience any kind of anti-Semitism at all. So show me examples of it.
This is personal experiences. That is not data. But I will show
me data. Yeah,
I will. I mean, you cannot expect me to just do like data.
No, but you're making such a strong claim. I mean, like that there's like all this widespread anti-Semitism. Like, I would figure like.
But I thought this is such, because I've seen so many reports on how much of a deep-rooted hatred this is for Jewish people all around the world, and how foundational.
News media.
Like I've seen so many reports and studies on this that I didn't even know that this is going to be disputed.
If you can show me a study, I would love to see that. I'd be happy if it's a legitimate study to change my perspective. I've seen news media talking about anti-Semitism. News media talking about something doesn't make it the case.
But saying I didn't experience it is not. It's not a response.
Anecdotal. Well, it's somewhat of a response. Anecdotal evidence is the lowest in terms of the evidence hierarchy, but you're just talking in general.
I mean, there are so many black people. There's so many black people in the United States that haven't experienced any form of racism.
I understand that. I understand. It's statistics, but like, you don't have to okay, fine. Don't show me an article, but just explain to me what is the evidence, for example, for there to be this widespread.
I will. I'm not ready to rebut that data.
Like, I understand you can't show me the sources, but can't you just recite it? Like, tell me about it.
No, I cannot recite studies. I'm sorry.
No, not studies. Just tell me. Just tell me about the summary of the study. Like, just tell me what it consists of.
The summary of the study shows deep-rooted hatred for Jews globally.
Like, where was the study done? Like, what did they look at? Like, how was?
Again, I will find them and I will send them to you. When it comes to studies that were focused on the United States or on Europe, or the rise of anti-Semitic views in Europe or in North America, in Russia, in Arab countries, in Africa, in the Far East, like there is a wide range of studies and analysis. I'm not going to be able to. I'm sorry, I don't have like a.
No, I was just like thinking like you could just tell me about one of them. Like, I agree with you that in terms of Arab countries,
I'm not. Yeah, I don't memorize names of study and statistics in those studies.
Now you're strong. I'm not asking for a name of a study. I'm just asking you to describe it. Like, if you take something that I talk about, or I say a study, you just said there was a lot of anti-Semitism. That's it. Like, you just literally gave me one sentence. I'm just asking you just to explain the study to me. Like, kind of
give me an example of what you want to hear.
Evidence that there's widespread anti-Semitism outside of Muslim majority countries.
Yes, there is evidence for widespread anti-Semitism.
So tell me about this evidence. Like, what does it look like? Is it surveys? Like, what is it?
Yeah, it's surveys, it's other form of studies, it's bias, measuring of biases, measuring of laws, measuring of like many different things. It's a variety of things.
So there's anti-Semitic. I'll show you. Okay, I agree with you. There's anti-Semitic laws in the Middle East, but are you saying there's anti-Semitic laws in like Europe or around that part of the world?
Not in Europe, but there are other countries that are not Muslim or Arab, and yes,
like Russia, for example. You think there's
biases within Russia against? Yeah. I mean, I don't know if they have. I don't think they have specific laws for it, but there are systematic racism against Jewish people there for sure. Yeah. And many other former Soviet countries.
Okay, you'd have to. I mean, you do know that Soviet Union countries have a lot of Jewish people in them. Like, there's a lot of Russian Jews.
Yeah. You know what? Germany had a lot of Jews before Hitler came into power.
Are you really going to equate Germany to Russia now when it comes to Jewish people?
No, I did not. I'm just saying, I'm showing that doesn't mean anything. I'm not saying they're the same. That's your
Okay,
straw
fair
man.
enough.
I'm not saying they're the same. I'm just saying having a lot of Jews doesn't mean that you're not anti-Semitic. I'm just
Okay, fair enough.
that.
Fair enough. You would need those Jews to be in a position of power to make it different than what happened in Germany. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, you can send me that stuff. I mean, I'm not gonna keep pressing you on it, but yeah, I don't know. I find that like I will fully acknowledge that like a lot of these Muslim majority countries, they fucking hate Jews, or at least there's laws and there's discrimination.
Not in Iran though. Not in Iran.
Good news about not in that. Iran, of course not.
Yes.
Iran loves Jews. Iran loves Israel.
Iran loves Israel. Yes, it does. Iranians love Israel. Iranians are natural allies with Israeli people.
Well,
I've been showing that.
Not Iranians. Iran, the government.
No,
isn't it like in the charter? Like, isn't like death to Israel in the charter or something, or is that the Houthis? Am I confusing?
Please don't say. Please don't. Here's a request. Please don't call the government of Iran. Okay, Iranian people are very picky about this because they don't think, because there's such a huge gap between the government and the people that a lot of Iranian people don't think it's fair to refer to the regime in power right now in Iran as Iran. So they say Iran is one thing and the regime is another thing. There's I would argue that there's not a single country in the world with a larger gap between its people and their government than there is right now in Iran.
Okay, yeah, it's totally fair. I mean, I was referring to the government of Iran, but yeah, I understand.
Yeah. Call it the Islamic Republic or the Iranian regime. Don't call them Iran.
Okay. Okay, not Iran, Iranian regime. I have Persian friends. Yes. I understand how much you guys fucking hate the government of Iran.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for knowing that. Please tell more people about it.
Yeah. What do you think is, I guess, like, I feel like we covered this a bit, but what do you feel like is going to be the future for Iran? Like, what do you think is, like, do you think there's ever a chance that there could be uprising that's successful?
Okay, there are going to be uprisings. Whether they're going to be successful or not, I honestly don't know. I think every single time there is an uprising, the people get a bit stronger and the government gets a little bit weaker. So at some point, this government goes away. At some point, I think this government is going to end. I just don't know what the shape is going to be. Is it going to be out of because millions of people are in the street, or is it because the pressure on the government is so much that there's going to be a coup d'etat, or is it going to be so much pressure on the government that they're going to do a slow, gradual change until they're not the Islamic Republic anymore? I don't know which form it's going to be, but the divide between the people and the regime is so high that I cannot imagine that this regime being able to just survive for long like this again. Yeah,
but hasn't that been the case for a while? I mean, I know you guys have been fucked since
40 years, more than 40 years. Yes.
Yeah.
But the gap. But the thing is that what has changed is the gap, right?
Yeah, the gap.
So the support for the regime is unbelievably low, and it's hard to imagine if it keeps dropping with the next generation, because
I feel like that was like the case for. I feel like that was the case for like Saddam Hussein. Like he was a Sunni minority or Shia minority in a Sunni majority country. Like most of the people were not with him.
No, he's a Shia majority with a Sunni ruler, right? But but still, even with the Sunni Shia divide, the divide was not as high as it is right now in Iran. Yeah. Because it's not about Shia and Sunni anymore. The Shia, even the majority of Shias hate the regime. Even the majority of religious people.
No, I understand. Yeah, I understand the Iranian regime is very well hated. I guess just one more question on that. Do you think, like, there's a lot of talk about sanctions and whether they punish the government, the Iranian government, or the Iranian people. Do you think that's an effective remedy? Or do you think that the sanctions actually wind up punishing regular Iranian people or equally to or as much as they do the Iranian regime?
So this is a huge debate among Iranians themselves. A lot of Iranians welcome the sanctions and a lot of Iranians don't, right? So the Iranians who welcome the sanctions, they say that once every time the Democrats reduce the sanctions, our lives do not get better. That they have seen that that the sanctions, whenever there's an appeasement or whenever the United States tries to use the carrot instead of the stick, the Iranian regime gets more bold. They support more terrorist activities, and they don't use the money that they receive to better the lives of the people. So a lot of people support the sanctions. However, what I would say is that I support a smarter form of sanctions, because I support the sanctions on oil and gas, because that's the revenue for the government. But I think within the sanctions, there should be an exception. Right now, the sanctions regime that we have on Iran doesn't let Iranian people in Iran to sell their services to outside of Iran. And I think that is undeserved. I think we should increase the sanctions on oil and gas, because that hits the government more than the people. But with it, decriminalize foreign companies and foreign individuals hiring people from Iran over the internet. Because I think if you open the door to people hiring from Iran while increasing the sanctions on oil and gas, you're rebalancing the wealth from the government. You're taking wealth from the government and you're giving the wealth to the people, and you're basically empowering the people against their government. So that's the form of sanctions
that makes
that
sense. I don't know as much about this issue, but that makes sense what you're saying. And one last question on this, I guess, because I'm curious. I always found, like, what would you say are the differences in terms of a regime between Saudi Arabia and Iran? Because I always found it interesting that America is best friends with Saudi Arabia, who's also who's also a dictatorship. But Iran is like public enemy number one. And I understand why Iran is an enemy. I'm not saying that that shouldn't be the case. I'm just like, what would you say in terms of the governments is the difference between MBS, what he's doing right now with Saudi Arabia, and the Iranian government? I mean, they're both, I'll let you answer the question.
Right. So we have dictatorships, but most dictatorships don't benefit from instability. Like, we can criticize, they are worthy of being criticized for being mean to their people, for lack of human rights, for many other issues, for having no freedom of speech and all of that. And all those criticisms are justified. However, they make it possible for other governments and regimes to be working with them, because there's something that benefits both themselves and their people, and that's stability. Stability brings trade brings prosperity.
And to be fair, Iran does work with Russia and China, right?
Well, the problem is Russia. Here's the thing: China is different. China prefers stability. Okay, Russia and the Islamic Republic of Iran are a little bit closer to each other, because they are they prefer this instability, but mostly the Islamic Republic of Iran. So the difference between Saudi Arabia, again, I'm no fan of MBS. I think he's a monster who killed so many Yemeni people. He's responsible for the greatest humanitarian crisis of our lifetime, that a lot of Arabs and Muslims in Yemen, which a lot of people don't talk about, because
not a lot of people talk about.
Yeah.
And
because they're not being bombed by Jews. That's the difference. Okay, that's why people talk more about Palestinians rather than Yemenis. But again, that's the form that those are Muslims and Arabs that people don't talk about. We talk about it a lot on our channel. So I consider Mohammed bin Salman to be a monster. However, this is a monster that wants stability. They want less tensions, because their power and their economy is tied into stability. Like, if you look at all the dictators and all the governments around that area, Qatar, UAE, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, they have governments with questionable human rights records, but again, they can work with other countries because they benefit from stability. The Islamic Republic of Iran, their internal power structure and their economy, it has this weird. I can go into so much details, but it has become such an odd situation that they actually benefit. They gain more power by causing instability in the region, and it's economically in their benefit. More instability, more tension, more war in the region, it actually benefits them both financially and power-wise. So that's why they have become such a tumor for everybody in the Middle East. And that's why they become such a menace in the region, that they have managed to get everybody closer together because everybody is realizing how big of a threat the Islamic Republic is, to the point that Arabs are working with Israel. Like nothing would have been able to bring Arabs to close to Israel in such a way that the Islamic Republic has done. Like Arabs and Israel were fighting for the entirety of the history of Israel.
I understand what you're saying. Yeah, I was just curious to hear your perspective of that. I do think we should do some point maybe a debate about the you can like have some time to look at the studies about the widespread anti-Semitism, because that's an interesting topic that I haven't like covered too much. But I think like you and I agree a lot when it comes to like generally foreign politics. We just disagree when it comes to Israel a bit, but I think we generally agree when it comes to just overall the way the world works on worldwide politics. But yeah, I mean, it was fun. I think we should. Yeah,
and we have the same goal. We want less civilians dead. I think both of us.
Well, we want less people dead in general. I think, right? Well,
I mean, the people killing people, we would probably
we want less civilians dead. Okay.
We want, okay. Yeah, sure. We want less. How about this? We want less misery.
Who wants, me or you, or Israel versus Palestine, or what?
No. Me and you, we both want more peace, more stability. We want less misery for the world. We have that goal. I mean, I think a lot of people hate each other because they think the other side is evil. I think establishing that I want less misery in the world and you want less misery in the world, we just seem to disagree on how to get there. I think having that first agreement will make us not hate each other because a lot of people think the other side that is disagreeing with them, they are moral monsters. Maybe they enjoy people suffering. And I think that's such a horrible assumption that will make the debate not go anywhere. I think if you assume the other side probably wants the same thing as you, they want less people suffering, they just have a disagreement over how we can get there, I think that will make the discussion a lot more productive if you assume that about the other side. Did you agree?
Yeah, of course. I think 99% of people on each side of this are like normal, rational, like relatively kind people. I think, it's a shame that like, it is a shame that like, for example, sometimes the people on the, let's just say on the right, like the pro-Israel side will just say that like, oh, you're just terrorist sympathizers, you just hate Jews. And then on the left, you say, oh, you're just pro-genocide, you hate Arabs. I think that's a shame because I think the vast majority of people don't hate Jews or hate Arabs. I think the vast majority of people are just operating in different sets of facts and have a different narrative in their head. And I think that's...
But also... The worst intentions that I could feel for a lot of that I might assume for a lot of people is a lot of these people don't actually care about Jews or Arabs, and they just want to be seen. Do you agree that sometimes I feel like it's about, hey, look at me, I am
like Rabbi Shmuley or whatever?
Like just like even like people like look how virtuous I'm being, like look how good, like I'm fighting for a cause. Like it's not about
there's a lot of virtue signaling in every I agree with that 100%. I think most like a lot of people are virtue signaling. Yeah.
All right. Overall, how was our discussion? Like, I'm sorry, like I didn't let you speak sometimes, but overall, were you happy with the way that this discussion went? Like, would you?
Yeah, overall, I thought it was a good discussion. I think it would have been better if I came more organized in terms of the points I want to get through, because I feel like we jumped around a bit. But that's every time I do this type of debate, we always jump around. So I've never had a debate where we didn't jump around. And maybe that's just part of the course. But the only thing that I can think of that might have been better is if we narrowed down on a subtopic. Like let's talk about Israeli army war crimes and just focus on that. That's the only thing that I can think of that could have made the debate better. But overall,
I would like to see focusing on not the existence of war crime, but something that shows that this is like, I haven't seen, like maybe I'm blinded or something, but I would like for somebody to show me.
Let me send you the Where's Daddy article, and you can take a look at that your own time. I'll be honest, I personally haven't really gone through it very thoroughly, but I did skim through it. So here it is. I'll send in the private chat. So take a look at that at your own time. This is the one about the AI thing, and you can send me a message. Let me know what you think. But yeah, man, cool. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate the discussion.
Yeah, thank you. Can you mention your channel and what? Like, I will put a link. The link to what, guys, is already in the description. I will put it one more time in the live chat. I think like 600 people are watching us right now. Most of them on Twitter. But guys, people who are watching us on Twitter, please come on subscribe to us on our YouTube channel. We need to grow people who, like, I don't know why so many people watch us on Twitter and they don't come hop over on our YouTube. Come and search for Atheist Republic on YouTube. And what's your YouTube channel again, Alex?
Yeah, it's called Playing with Fire, but there's not much politics on there. If you guys want like dating advice or comedy or like how to pick up girls and all that, that's what you'll see on there. Politics. And there's a few Destiny Israel debates, but that's about it. I don't do politics too often.
Okay, you should. You're good at it. I mean, I think it's interesting.
It's fun. It's not my forte though. I prefer to focus on what I focus on. But I appreciate the discussion, man. Thanks for having me on. And yeah, I'm totally down to do widespread anti-Semitism debate at some point in the future. That's a fun topic that I haven't covered.
Sounds good. Let's do that. Then.
Take it easy.
All right. You too. All right. Guys, make sure you like the stream. Don't leave without liking. Thank you for being here. Like the stream. Leave a comment. Make sure you subscribe. Hit the bell notification. And tell people to come check Atheist Republic on YouTube and subscribe to it. Thank you. Bye. How was this? Tell me, how did I do? Give me feedback.